Hey everyone, it's Brian. The purpose of today's sermon is for you to learn who sex is intended for and when it's permitted. And by the end of this video, you will be able to list the two teachings that we learn about who sex is for and when it's permitted, as well as be able to quote the exact verse which supports these two teachings. Gotta say something very important though. This sermon is only for people who believe that the Bible is the most authoritative text in your life. If you don't believe that, this video is not intended for you, but you are still welcome to watch the end. Welcome everybody that's new. Welcome back to the channel. The purpose of this channel is to help you not just be a listener of the word, but to live it out in your life. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for spending time with me again. If you notice, I'm here in a new place. There's a sunset, there's a sun over, there's like a cross on the whiteboard in the background. I'm not a teacher, I just so happen to be in a school today, and this is the only place I get to record my video. Let's get started. The passage we have today is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2. It says this, "But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband." Okay, let's talk about this verse. This is Paul talking to the Corinthians who live in a hypersexual culture, like yours and like mine. In America, everything is hypersexualized. That's what the Corinthians were living in back then. And the context of this verse is very important because the Corinthians, because they lived in such a hypersexual culture where everybody everywhere is having sex, doing all sorts of sexual things, living in sexual immorality, they thought it was better to not have sex at all. It's better to abstain from sex. It's better for a man not to have sex with a woman at all, to have no sexual relations. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 1, that's what it says. But Paul is actually explaining that sex is not a bad thing. But if you do have sexual temptations, it should be between a man and a woman who are husband and wife. So let's talk about the two things that I promised that we would talk about, which are the two teachings about sex. Who sex is for and when is it permitted? Point number one. Sex is only between a married man and a married woman who are in a monogamous relationship. Okay, that's it. Sex is only between a married man and his wife. Sex is only between a married woman and her own husband. How do we know that? Well, Paul says in chapter 7, verse 2, if you have sexual temptation, if you are tempted to sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife. Not his own husband, not his own lover. Let each man have his own wife. And then what? Let each woman have her own husband. Not her own wife. Not her own lover. Her own husband. Not her own partner. Her own husband. It's also singular. It's also a man and a woman. A husband and a wife. It's not husbands, wives, men, women. It's not plural. So it's not anything where it's a man, man, and woman. Or a woman, woman, and woman. Or woman, woman, and man. It is exclusive between a man and a woman. One man and one woman. That is a crazy idea to believe in. Why do we believe this? Let's talk about a possible objection. Why do we believe such a teaching that many people nowadays do not even think is legit? Where people think that this idea is backwards, where people think that this idea is old school. Why do we believe this? Well, the primary reason why we believe this, firstly, like I said in the beginning of this video, you believe, you are here, you're currently listening because you believe that the Bible is the most authoritative text in your life. That's the primary reason why we believe this. Why? Because the Bible says so. But if you don't believe that already, this is going to be impossible for you to accept. You're not going to believe this. Why? Because the Bible is not the most authoritative text in your life. So why should you follow something that you think is old school, old fashioned, not progressive? Why? Why would you do that? You wouldn't. The second reason is because Adam and Eve were intentionally designed by God as Adam and Eve, not Adam and John, not Eve and Annie, okay? It's Adam and Eve. Intentionally designed, man and woman. God did not choose man and man or woman and woman. Therefore, we follow the intentional design that God created. So we get married to the opposite gender in a heterosexual marriage. That's why. The second point. When is sex permitted? Sex is only permitted in marriage. Once again, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2. Paul says, if you have sexual temptation, let a man get a wife. Let a woman get a husband. If you are tempted, get a husband or get a wife. These are titles that you only have when you're married. If you're not married, why would you be calling yourself a husband to somebody else? If you're not married, why would you call yourself a wife to somebody else? That's because you're married. And when you're married, that is the only time the Bible permits for you to have sex. Most importantly, this means sex is not between boyfriend and girlfriend, because those titles do not signify that you are married. It's not between fiancé and fiancée, or however it's called. Just because you're engaged, you're not married. You shouldn't be having sex. Sex is only permitted between a husband and a wife, okay? That's it. It's just that straightforward. Another potential objection is, why is it only permitted in marriage? Why can't I do it outside of marriage? And then people often talk about, well, God gives you guidelines, and God really gives you some rails in life to make sure you don't fall off. Well, to be honest, I don't really find that. I think that's just human wisdom. I'll give you some biblical wisdom. 1 Corinthians 7 verse 2 says that it's between a man and a woman in marriage, right? We know that already. But in Ephesians 5 verse 3, God specifically says, a man will leave his father and mother, and then he'll hold fast to his wife. And then they will become one flesh. So pay attention to the sequencing. Let's go through that again. The sequences in which things happen. First, the man leaves his parents. Second, then the woman becomes his wife. And last, third, then they become one flesh through sexual intercourse. That's the sequencing. The sequencing is very important. What this means is that after a man and a woman get married, that's when they finally have sex. That's the sequencing in Ephesians 5:31. It's not first they have sex and become one flesh, and then the woman becomes the man's wife, and then the man leaves his family and leaves his parents. That's not the sequencing. That's why sex is only permitted in marriage, okay? Not when you're engaged, not when you're boyfriend and girlfriend. So now that we're at the end of this video, you should be able to list the 2 teachings that we learned about who sex is for and when it's permitted. And you should be able to quote the verse which supports these 2 teachings, okay? That's that. Everybody that's new, welcome. Thank you for watching to the end. If you watched to the end of this video already, subscribe. What are you waiting for? If you returned and you always watch my channel, thank you. And if you would like, you can invite me to speak at your church. I will not charge you. I just want to preach the word faithfully and accurately. And there's not enough people in this world doing that. You can send an invite to my email. I'll put the email also in the description below if you want to invite me to speak at your church. Thanks for listening. Peace. See you later. Bye-bye.